Okay, so today I will talk about the policy brief that we are doing using the ASHE to examine the low pay transition 2004 and 2019. That is just our initial exploration of the data. And this is the work that we work together in the web team, and next, so I will give you some background about some general background. So LBC basically relying on the ASHE and NES to assess the impact of national minimum wage on the wage distribution. And we are trying to make the improvement in the data infrastructure, but there are still many quirks and fixes. Our project to wage and national living wage by constructing the a consistent ASHE and NES wage spine and cleaning, do the quality assurance and matching the census 2011 with the ASHE to provide more information. And we're using that data to present the trend in the low pay incident and transition and the duration in the low pay. So what this presentation is about the initial exploration of the ASHE for 2004 and 2019. And we could expect to go further back as we can with the new version. And then what did we do? We did the data checking and constructing the pay variable. What the pay variable here is we meant by hourly pay and how we derive it and how the missingness of that variable and how we identify the job are being at low pay or not. So that is the rounding method we will mention later. And then about how we identify that a main job or other job, because as you know that in ASHE there one person with many jobs. And then we try to examine the time trend, for example, the incidence of the minimum wage, the national living wage job, how it's changed in the wage distribution over the time, and percentage of work the job underpay, on and at minimum pay, on the minimum wage, low pay, or at high pay, and the transition after low pay. That's what we are doing right now. So, it's about the constructing the hourly pay. So just a quick recap about the hourly pay. So this is defined by the gross pay in the reference period, exclude the overtime, our shift premium, but included the bonuses of commission paid in the reference period, divided by hours, excluding the overtime in the pay period. And then we derive it by two ways. So that is the top down, whereby we subtract the overtime and the shift premium payment from the gross pay. And the second method is the bottom up, whereby we adding together all the relevant components. And we glad that all approaches lead to the same result. And how the missing matter, we will come back later with it. So here's the summary statistic of the nominal hourly pay that we did. So over the period, the nominal median hourly earning among the elders have risen from £9.11 to £13.33. That is a rise of 31%. And over the same period, the earning at the lower quantile and the upper quantile rose similarly percentages, roughly around 50% more or less. And the elder minimum wage has risen from 4%, from £4.50 in 2004 to £8.21 in 2019. That is a rise of 82%. And in 2004, there was equivalent of 49% of the elder minimum earning rising to 55.1% in 2005, and then 59.8% in 2019. So it should note that this hourly earning measure does not perfectly capture whether someone is paid the minimum wage or not, because it's the main issue is depend on the survey timing that we will mention in later. Incidence of the missingness is low. We wonder whether it's random or not, and we can confirm that it's not missing at random. So the missingness is correlated with the low pay industry or occupation that people are in, and the pay affected by absence. And then you can see the result in the appendix of the policy paper that we upload on our webpage for a detailed result. And the implication of the missingness is maybe the earning may need immutating, but for now, we simply exclude these cases where the hourly pay is missing. So next, we try to assess the compliance with the minimum wage and national living wage. So as I mentioned above, so our measure of hourly pay cannot perfectly capture whether someone is paid at the minimum wage or not, because mainly the issue of the timing of the survey. So as you know that the minimum wage uprating took effect in October every year from 2004 to 2015. But with the new introduction of the national living wage in 2016, the uprating came into effect on the 1st of April each year onward. So if you look at the employee, if the employee reference pay period had begun prior to the 1st of April, they may be observed as being paid below the new national living wage, but then actually it still be compliant because they are because they take the previous applicable minimum wage rate, so that we have to adjust the correct minimum wage or national living wage that should apply to each people, and this depends on their reference pay period. The third one we cover is about the routing method. To identify the underpayment, the low pay commission does the routing up to 5p. So the old concern regarding to the conservative approach, and then another alternatively like ONS and Phan Felix work suggest a way to routing up is mostly due to the employee behaviors. So I will take the minimum wage at £4.93 as the example. So the LPC approach will take those people pay up to £4.98 to be paid on or below the minimum wage. But whereas Felix method will take those pay up to £5 to be paid on or below the minimum wage. And then depending, both methods depend on actually the minimum wage is. So for example, if the case of £4.98p, so then the minimum wage of LPC threshold should be higher than Felix. And then that is the implication for identifying the job are on or below the minimum wage, because the two routing will lead to the two different conclusions. So here is the figure, the graph that may illustrating the two-way method of routing. So if you look at on the graph, the red line is all the job is below or equal the minimum wage, and the blue line is the job at below or equal the minimum wage plus 5p. That's the LPC approach. And then the yellow line is adopt the Phan and Ritchie practice of rounding up to the nearest 10p. So you can see that some of that may be different. It's depending on the actual minimum wage is. The next point that we are covered in the policy paper is to identify main job and other job. So we put the marker of main job in the data, and the rules for identifying the main job is defined by if that job is, if they have only one job, so this is the main job. If they have many jobs, so the main job will be the job with most hour work. And if there is a tie, so the job with the highest pay will be the main job. And then we try to find the incidence of all the job rising over time and how it linked to the rising value in the minimum wage and national living wage, and what the percentage of main job or other job minimum wage job, and the other way around, and how it changed over time. So among the employees aged over 25, so the percentage of all job and other job have been rising over year from 1.5% of all job in 2004 up to 2.4% in 2019. And here we see that the most job are main job above the minimum wage, but this percentage from 82.6% in 2019. There has been a growth in percentage of jobs that are main job pay at or under the minimum wage. And most of the growth in other job is in the other job paying above the minimum wage from 4.1% up to 2.2%. The next point, we look at the wage distribution. So here is the wage distribution in 3 years. So the first one on the left-hand side is for 2004. The middle one is year 2012. The right-hand side is 2019. So as the minimum wage, national minimum wage has risen related to the median earning, we see the rate of bunch of job at the minimum wage. You can see that value is in each graph. Last thing that we did is try to put the category variable to capture the wage distribution relative to the national minimum wage. So the job status over time, we have 4 classifications. The first one is underpay, and those who are at the minimum wage, and those are above the minimum wage but still lower than low pay. So we take the threshold is 2/3 of the median hourly wage. And the last one is the high pay, that's those who are over the 2/3 median hourly wage. And here is the graph of job underpay at minimum wage, low pay and high pay. So that shows all the jobs for those who are age 25 plus age group, and then percentage of low pay job, those above the minimum wage but below 2/3 of median have been switched. So back in 2004, they are constituted 15% of the old job, but virtually disappeared by 2019. The percentage of high pay job rose from 33% to 93%. is around 10 percentage point. So this line is the jump in the previous graph. So you see that percentage of jobs above the minimum wage but below 2/3 millions have fallen dramatically. And then percentage of minimum wage job rises nearly threefold to 4.3%. And what we are doing now is try to understand the transition outflow pay. So to do it, so we try to understand the longitudinal Phan element of ASHE. And then we found that the attrition rate in ASHE is quite high. What we meant by attrition rate here is those who appear in period 1 but disappear in period 2. And so this means the exit rate in ASHE is around 25% and is incredibly high. But while we did the same analysis for the quarterly LFS, and the attrition rate is around 8 to 9%, we suspect that the LFS rate is more credible than ASHE. So we did the comparative analysis of ASHE and the quarterly LFS, and the result basically pretty much the same, except one big difference that we found is the role of the time. This means that exit rates have risen in recent years in ASHE, but not in LFS, because we thought that we could expect the same result in both surveys, but why is only apparent in ASHE but not LFS? And then we put that three hypotheses as why ASHE have higher attrition rate. I think the most and the main reason for it is about the employer non-response. So this means that individuals remain in the employment, but the employer fails to respond to the survey. What the investigation that we may do is to use the NREF to see how the attrition over the two period, or we can even examine the 3-period panel cases where the individual disappear in period 2 but reappear in period 3 with the same employee or the same job as period 1. So this could be the indicative of the employer non-response in period 2. Or maybe as more or less we can, another hypothesis from us is maybe some maintaining in longitudinal integrity of the unique individual identifier. So if that's the case, the employee in period 1 are inadvertently issued with a new unique ID in period 2. So then in aggregate, the new job entry rate in ASHE will be higher than ASHE. That's something that we can do. Or we can even look at the job characteristic between the employees. So for example, if these employees are actually the same employees in the period 1 and 2, but by some mistake, so they are given a different unique identifier in period 2. So among them who are present in period 2, we may expect someone to see they were in the same job in the previous 1 or not. Or the third one may be about the sampling. So because we're not quite sure how clear of the how detailed the detail of how ASHE sample is obtained every year, and how it's straightforward to ONS to take from HMRC record to identify the NI number and then location. So the issue may arise in this one is about the data handling and job transferring between the HMRC and ONS. So So that what we thought, and some bit that we can do in terms of the trying to understand why ASHE have the high attrition rate. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Phan. And I think what we'll have now is around about 7 minutes of questions. So please feel free to sort of put your hand up or make yourself known. If you do have a question, though, could you please sort of introduce yourself and say where you're from, so we can sort of get a bit of context around that. Alternatively, of course, you can put some comments in the chat box, and I'll be happy to sort of read that out. So are there any questions? Just to get us started then, Phan, I suppose if I'm a researcher and I want to do some analysis on this data set, all the variables that you've sort of talked about creating, these new sort of low pay variables, the main job variables, the categorical variables, will they be available to me as a researcher to sort of undertake my own analysis, or will the code be in there? How will that be presented, do you know?
Yeah. So because like the LBC using the HR-by-X variable, so but it's just available in the ASHE 2000 since 2015, 2016. So that's why we try to create a variable that's similar to it, consistent over time. And then the code is ready in the SRS, so that as the researcher, you can use it anytime that you want, and you can check it.
Okay, thank you. Yep, Felix, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Just to say that yeah, the variables and things that Phan talks about, they should all be available, as well as some of the underlying methodology. So, for example, the main job, trying to identify the main job, there is a variable in ASHE for this. We're not entirely sure what it relates to, because it is a very poor correlation with hours and maximum either weekly or hourly earnings. So we've so there's a paper coming out which will describe the basis for all of these things.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, I do have a, yes, we've got one. Sorry, it just says TK, so I don't know you. Tom Key. Hello, Tom.
Hi, it's Tom from the Bank of England. This was really interesting. I had a quick technical question, which was about the LFS attrition rate comparison. So I couldn't quite follow what exactly you'd done, but I wondered, so I think if I was doing it, I'd look at try and use the 5-quarter LFS to look at of the people that stay in the survey, because I think we'd want to abstract from survey attrition. So of the people that stay in the survey for 5 quarters, how many of them are employed in the first quarter and then not employed in the 5th quarter? But I couldn't quite tell whether that's what you'd done or whether you'd done something different. And more generally, I'd be really interested to find out more about why attrition rates in ASHE are so high. So it'd be great to hear about that.
Yeah, as you say that I did the same with the LFS. So like we try to look at the person who appear in the first quarter of LFS, and how they are be in the 5th quarter of LFS.
Okay.
And then we still try to understand why ASHE have the high attrition rate. We haven't got a clear answer for it at the moment. But that all the suspicious that we are trying to investigate, I think.
It's possible that there might be artificially high in the LFS, because we know that there are a relatively small number of participants in the longitudinal LFS, and so they might be more engaged and more stable. But even so, other evidence about us, when you ask people how long they've been in their job, suggests that the ASHE rates are too high. So we share your enthusiasm, Tom, for understanding where these rates come from. So we've changed our emphasis to try and refocus a little, because it's something we felt we weren't fully aware of, and so we're now concentrating much more on this, because this is quite essential to all of the wage progression stuff.
Okay, thanks, Yep, Tom's happy with that, I think. I see in the comments. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I've just got one more then before we wrap up. If you can go to slide 18, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, so what this sort of says to us is, I think that there's potentially a good news story here in that people being paid sort of low wages or below is sort of shrinking as a proportion, more people being paid higher wages. I wonder whether that is an actual effect, because obviously this is a relative measure, because I think it's sort of 60%, is it, above the median? So could this be due to the fact that overall incomes are falling? So this potential good news story, is it potentially not quite that simple?
No, I think because it's relative to the national minimum wage and the national living wage. Because as you know that the LPC trying to increase the minimum wage, national living wage over years, try to make our life better. So that's why you can see that that's strong in the low paid one. So now more proportion of the job are at the minimum wage over the time, as you see, because the relatively increase of the minimum wage or national living wage.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got 1 minute left, so time for, we've got a MK. Sorry,
Hi, Maria Comenta, Queen Mary University. I was just wondering, does this attrition apply across the wage distribution, or does it disproportionately affect certain quantiles of the distribution?
So the attrition rate in ASHE that we're doing is we try to in any year. So we if that person appear in the first period, and how it appear or disappear in the next period. So it's like year by year.
I think the question though was about what have we done to look at the factors that underlie the attrition. So, for example, are people in high-paying stationary jobs equally likely to disappear and come back again? And the answer to that is that Phan and John and Lucy have done a number of regression analyses trying to uncover the factors. What we haven't done is we haven't looked at this on a segmented basis.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm sure we will. Okay, so we are out of time now. So thank you very much for coming today. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to send them through by email, and we will get back to you on that. Just before we go, I'm just checking the comments section. Obviously, when the LPC meets its 2/3 target by 224, inside 18, there will be on one in the low pay category. Okay, so we'll answer to any comments as we get back. So thank you very much for coming today, and hopefully we'll see you at our next seminar.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.